Chapter 32. Do you miss your hometown, Yudhir? Kishir, as usual, wore a gentle smile. Yudhir didn't attach much significance to the question. However, Gakane, who was sitting next to him, was innocently shifting his expressions. He seemed to believe that the commander was scolding Yudhir indirectly. Kishir is not the type of the person to do that. He is indeed a bit eccentric, but another unnecessary thought. Yudhir shook his head and briefly replied, "No. As you said, I have no family and no lingering regrets, so I do not miss it. I only feel that I should go back someday to tidy up, as I left without doing so, not knowing I would be accepted into the cavalry." That's a valid point. I hadn't considered it. After we successfully complete this mission, I will have to give everyone a few days of leave. At Kishir's smooth response, Gakane's eyes widened in surprise. Not only was Yudhir's audacity to converse so casually with the commander who held a high noble title shocking, but so was Kishir's easygoing nature. He did not reprimand Yudhir for his insolence and even casually mentioned future plans. Commander, is that okay?" "What do you mean?" Gakane cautiously composed himself and posed the question. "Deciding on something like a sudden leave for everyone." "Of course it's okay. I have the discretion to make such decisions. I won't change my mind. So, Gakane, you too should start planning ahead." Kishir gave a slight wink. Gakane had always thought of Kishir as a person of great dignity, his conduct fitting his imperial lineage. However, seeing Kishir's casual demeanor, all thoughts disappeared from Gakane's mind due to shock. I will go get some water." Yudhir watched Gakane rise shakily and disappear, guessing the kind of the shock he must be feeling. Those who judged Kishir by his outward appearance were bound to be shocked by the discrepancy with his true nature. Yudhir had once been the same. On the surface, Kishir might appear as a dignified commander with a handsome face reflecting his divine lineage, but that was not all there was to Kishir Lahore. He was an imperial family member who never married and maintained an insignificant noble title until death. He was a womanizer, indiscriminately sowing seeds of scandal with countless individuals. Now the newly formed cavalry needed to establish discipline, so he maintained a calm demeanor externally. However, once you peeled back one layer of his mask, he casually winked at his subordinates. That was another side of Kishir. The cavalry members would probably have to get used to this aspect of his. Come to think of it, now that Gakane is gone, this is the only time I can speak privately with Kishir. Despite the lapse in conversation, Kishir remained seated next to Yudhir. After hesitating for a moment, Yudhir opened his mouth. "May I ask you something?" "Only if it wasn't about disappointment in my unfitting behavior as a leader," Kishir responded as if he had been waiting. Yudhir sighed lightly and shook his head. "Could a mere member dare to do so?" "Of course not." "Really? You, Yudhir, seem to like someone who could." What did he mean by someone who could? But Yudhir knew well that digging into that here would only waste time. Pointlessly making unnecessary comments to break down the opponent's will and guess their intentions was one of the things Kishir used to do well in the past. "Fine, if not, then what are you trying to say?" "Do you know that among the Southern Army soldiers who have stayed here for 2 years guarding the Redstone, there are unusually many awakeners?" As there weren't much time, he went straight to the point. From what I heard from the soldier who guided us yesterday, the ratio was significantly higher than expected. If you add them all up, there are dozens of awakeners in these mountains. If Kishore had asked why he suddenly mentioned this, it would have been quite a conundrum as to where to begin the explanation. However, fortunately, he seemed to understand right away what Yudhir intended to say. His playful red eyes immediately became serious. I have never received such a report. I heard they were mostly ordinary soldiers, and they didn't even apply to the cavalry. Why didn't they apply to the cavalry? Why didn't anyone think to report it as an unusual occurrence when there were so many awakeners? How much had Kishore realized? Yudhir quietly waited for his response. If it's true, then we need an investigation. Originally, the military is not something I can interfere with. But if what you say is true, this is not a normal situation. The words you just said, they are based on the truth, right? Of course. Kishore's reaction was more favorable than Yudhir had expected. With a calm face, Yudhir nodded. It was something that would come out sooner or later if they investigated anyway. Kishore, who seemed lost in thought for a moment, stroked his chin, turned his gaze with a soft chuckle, as if he had finished sorting things out. Well, I didn't expect that the serious thing you wanted to talk about with was such a grave face was this. I heard you're not particularly interested in your comrades, but it seems you're quite interested in the awakeners. What should he answer here to smoothly move on and establish a not-so-bad relationship with Kishore in the future? Underneath his emotionless phrase, Yudhir was having a fierce internal debate. It's not that I'm interested, I just thought it could be dangerous. Since you, the leader, are the one commanding us, I thought it would be best to tell you about matters related to the awakeners. Dangerous. Unmanaged awakeners gathered in one organization. It could be. It was a fundamental answer, so it probably didn't feel strange. Kishore murmured lowly and slowly nodded. Interesting. It's curious that so many awakeners appeared in this one place. I wonder if it's because of the red stone. He turned his gaze towards Yudhir as if contemplating something. What do you think? Yudhir maintained a moment of silence. What should he respond? Would it be better to feign ignorance and take a step back in the situation? However, it was him who had brought up the matter to Kishore. He seems to want to know how far I have thought. In that case, he could just show him. After all, Kishore would have already speculated about what Yudhir could answer. Yudhir slowly opened his mouth. When the red stone fell, it emitted power causing awakenings across the entire continent. If such a powerful force can do that, isn't it not coincidental that many awakened individuals would come from among those who stayed closer to it for a longer period? Right, I also think the same. Kishore smiled like a teacher who had finally heard the answer he was seeking. However, those who haven't reported to me about the unique awakenings ratio among the soldiers here, even after 2 years since the stone fell, probably didn't think that way. You have quickly noticed this anomaly and even reported it to me, which is a matter they might have considered insignificant. I admire your ability. Is the observational and judgmental ability part of your awakened ability? No, you are flattering me. It's not flattery, it's sincere. With a single sentence, Kishore had rated all the soldiers here, including General Gino, as inferior to Udir. As Udir hesitated about how to respond, Keshir's red eyes sparkled like a clever beast without a hint of his usual languor. Indeed. Yes? I proposed before that we should get to know each other better. Would you seriously consider it? I promise you won't be disappointed. His voice was sweet, more like throwing a charm towards someone he liked rather than talking to a subordinate. Any ordinary person would have blushed at such words, but Udir, on the contrary, became calmer. I'm already your subordinate, Captain. You have been more than generous with me. I'm not sure what you mean by getting closer here, but... Oh, so you are going to dodge it this time. Keshir grinned, pulling up the corners of his mouth. Well, fine. I'm the type of the person who feels more accomplished when I break down a higher wall. A high wall? It was not an expression that someone of imperial lineage would use to a commoner. Just as I said, you are already my subordinate, so let's take a long-term view. With that was a declaration that he wouldn't give up on his intention. As Udir's eyes twitched, Keshir stood up from his seat. It seemed he was about to set off again. Udir Ale, if you notice any strange circumstances in the future, feel free to report them to me anytime. If I'm not around and you meet my deputy or the other people, feel free to talk to them as you would to me. I'll let them know. Understood. For a single conversation, it was a remarkable achievement. It was also a gesture that proved Keshir had a significant interest in Udir's mind and abilities. He's certainly no ordinary man.